So this is an open source project that I am A, the sole author on, B, the sole user of, which is kind of pathetic, right? I'm hoping to get users of it. It's a framework so that it's an app framework and a server framework so that you could deploy this. I don't know if you guys know Parse. So Parse is kind of a simplified kind of meme. It used to be, it was created by Facebook, but they open sourced it because they didn't want to support it anymore. I guess, I don't know what the business deal was, but it was a way for apps to simply boot up, relatively simply to boot up a server. Used to be all you had to do is, click on a button on their thing and they would boot up the server for you and pay some money. And they had a client interface on I'm sure it was both Android and iOS. So that you could store your data in the cloud. So that was another framework system. This is similar to that in that it's a framework, but it's got some very different goals. My goals for this are so that you put the user owns their data. You put it into the user's cloud storage like Google Drive or Dropbox, and that in of itself isn't too hard to do. You don't have to go through all too much hoops. What I also like, another goal with this was to make it have safe sharing, so that I could share with another Google Drive user, another Facebook user, a Twitter user, whomever, and they could get access to just that limited set of files that I want to share with them. And I'll show you an example app. I've got one demo app that I'm working on. I haven't released it to the App Store yet because my buddies and I are working on it. They're offering critiques and I'm working on it. And for the first slide, this has nothing to do with talk. I just thought put something personal in here. In another lifetime, I flew gliders. That's my right wing off to the right there. I'm a few thousand feet over the Mississippi River, just southeast of St. Paul. It was actually the broadest point of the Mississippi.
Gliders, like the unmotored.
Yeah. This was the end of a really awesome flight. This was I was 250 miles into that flight, something like that. Anyway, so back to the topic. So I want to step you through some kind of general concepts. My intent with this is to not make it technical. I wasn't sure who was going to be coming in. I didn't want to make it all about code and APIs and whatnot. A little bit of technical stuff, and I do have a slide at the very end where I can bore you with some bigger, more technical stuff, but it wasn't the overall intent. I'll give you some general concepts. I want to step through some use cases too. Then a little bit of architecture, and I want to step you through this example app that I've been building called Shared Images. And then next steps about what I want to do next with this project. So, general purpose client frameworks and servers. So this is not intended to be just like Roster. Roster is one system. We're not trying to be general purpose in terms of the server and the client. This Sync server is intended to be able to run multiple apps out there. If you use it, then you have to spin up your own server. I happen to be using AWS right now. I've got a Docker image that you can spin up and it'll work presumably on whatever, something that runs Docker, you can use it. Every time I put on a new version of my server, I put it up on Docker. So I think I've said everything there. So here's the general overall kind of picture. And this looks a little technical, but I'm not trying to be technical. So the idea is that these clusters off to the left here. Am I actually recording? It looks like it, yes. So these kind of clusters here, this is intended to be each of the yellowish, orangish things are supposed to be mobile devices. And I say mobile 1, mobile 2, mobile 3. So those are mobile 4. It could be any number of mobile devices over here. The dot 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 is just saying there could be more, right?
6 days?
So, and I say owner 1, and I put G there. And so that's mapping onto Google Drive.
Sorry, Mike.
Hey, that's all right. It's all right.
Oops. Get out of that camera.
So the idea is that you've got some And I'm gonna tell you, I've got a next step that I'm gonna kind of generalize this, hopefully. Right now, there's, per group of people, there's one owner. So that'll go in, if I start myself up as an owner, then I'm sharing some of my Google Drive files to you related to this app. And I can invite other people, so a Facebook user. Right now, I've got Google, I've got Facebook, I've got Dropbox. Dropbox doesn't like to be used, they say this in their docs, they don't like to be used as a sign-on service. So I'm not allowing I can't invite Eric as a Dropbox user to my stuff. I could, but Dropbox doesn't like it, so I abided by their rules. I could invite you as a Facebook user, I could invite you as a Google Drive user.
But you can share Dropbox files then?
Yes. So that's my other case here. So this is the second owner. Someone else, I want to share my files, and some other person sharing files. This is, again, there's a limitation here, and I don't know if you can see it, but I don't want to get into the limitation quite yet. As a Dropbox owner, someone with Dropbox, and I can store some files, I can store my files in Dropbox, and I can share them with Facebook, Google people, whatever. Right now, I'm going to add on other social sign-in services. Twitter, it takes me about a day to do that. I got to put it on the client side, I got to put it on the server side, but overall it's about a day worth of work. Or a week worth of evenings, whichever comes first, right? So what happens here, and I try to draw different colored arrows. So this is one kind of collection of stuff. So as I said at the beginning, hey, welcome. What I'm trying to do, Rob's seen a version of this talk. I'm trying to do this more of a user-oriented talk, less technical. What I'm trying to do is make it so that you can share. What did I say? Users can store their data in their own cloud, and I can share that data safely with others. So, the way I do that is the server. This ends up with a server. It stores in its database. So this is the closest I could come to a metadata icon. It stores user credential information, and it stores like names of files and where they're located. It does not store data content. So for my example app, I call it shared images, it does not store those images in the server database. It just stores names of files,
information, locations of files.
Yeah, and by doing that, it can authenticate this Facebook user. I've invited that Facebook user, and by virtue of that, and I'll show you kind of a little bit of the steps of that, the server knows that that person can access those files. Okay, there's a designated set of files, and that's why I've made this kind of gray-blue split here in the Google Drive files for this owner one. Owner one being that one there. The gray are the files that this thing knows about that can be shared with others. The server knows about that can be shared with others. The blue is everything else, your other whatever files in Google Drive that are private, that you're not sharing, and that is maintained by the server. That is that permission schedule, that permission setup is maintained by the server. Similarly over here, so the blue goes through, it all funnels through the server. Okay. The red goes through, and it does authentication as part of that. All the file data transfers that way, and all the authentication transfers that way, with one exception. I'm simplifying a little bit. In order to sign in as a Google user, I first take you to Google. You know, I sign you in locally using standard Google sign-in kind of stuff.
OAuth, sort of.
OAuth. But I also use OAuth here it's a kind of a double authentication procedure. Initially, you sign into the app as a Google user, and then on each API call, I say, are you really a Google user? And furthermore, do I know about you as a user on my system? And so the same kind of path, Dropbox, the system knows about what files this person is sharing, and when this Google sharing user comes in, they can then access the files on that basis. Can I make a little bit of sense?
So, what is it, owner one shares cloud documents with share?
Some number
share.
of other sharing users. So it could be, right now it's just one owner and some number of sharing users in this collection. Make sense?
Yeah,
I'm gonna generalize this. What's one of my big pieces that I need to work on in the future is, I'm gonna generalize this to groups, because this is really limiting right now. Right now, I cannot have, and this comes up in my shared images app. What I'd like to have is a collection of images I can share with my tech buddies. A collection of images I can share with my family. A collection of images I can share with my pet sitter.
so it's like collection based, not like,
That's where I will move. But right now, there's one owner and a collection of sharing people who do not own the images. It's not stored in any kind of their services.
right.
It's a more tricky, complicated situation to have kind of collection-based, group-based, and I'm moving that way, but I one step at a time. Any other questions? Probably getting away with the camera here, but Jay will have to watch my butt if he wants to look at it. So, I want to talk about some use cases now. Maybe I'll sit down, that's easier.
I can click too if you want me to.
I've got some food to eat. I want to look through 4 use cases. The last one is kind of a strange use case. The first 3 are right in line with the main goals that I talked about. The 4th one is there's a whole other set of goals I have, and the 4th one is kind of more aligned with the other goals I have. But private social media, I think, is the kind of cool kind of phrase that you could say for a main use case. So, like something like Facebook, your data gets stored on their servers, right? I think I haven't looked at their intellectual property thing, but I think when you post an image or text or whatever it is, they own it. It is theirs. So
They do whatever they want with it.
there's a certain kind of loss there in terms of privacy. And when I'm saying privacy, I don't mean security. I don't mean protecting it from government spying. I mean ownership. I mean intellectual property. I mean law. I mean, can your data be searched by Google? You know, will it show up in a Google search kind of thing? So if a developer makes use of the sync server, it's got to be at the developer level, right? You can't just sign into this as an end user. Developer makes use of the sync server to deploy their app. Then the data content gets stored in the app user's cloud, like Google Drive or Dropbox. The data can be safely shared through whatever kind of sign-in mechanism. Right now, it's Facebook, it's Google. The user, the owning user, retains that ownership because it's in their Google Drive or whatnot. And there are services that you can spin up on your own servers that emulate something like a Google Drive. So I could add those in too. I haven't yet. Can't remember. There's some names I saw. I haven't seen that. I don't remember what those names are. But they're kind of like cloud file storages that are not owned by some other company. You put them up on your services, on your servers. In principle, there's no reason I couldn't add that in too. The data is private in the sense that it's not searchable. It's not private in any encryption sense. That depends on what kind of cloud service you're using. Yeah, I'm using HTTPS, using standard SSL kind of stuff, but that doesn't make it. I'm not trying to make any encryption privacy claims. I'm trying to make an ownership privacy claim. Make sense? A little bit?
Publicity, privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just not.
It's like something inside your home. It is private. Yeah, well, the police could come in tomorrow and ransack your place if they would so desired, saying you're a terrorist and whatever. Is it private? Well,
Yeah.
if I encrypt something with massive encryption, probably that's pretty close to private. But anyway, different levels of privacy. So that's one use case. Another use case, what I'm phrasing, and probably the terminology could be improved here a bit, data longevity. So and this was actually one of my reasons for developing this system. Let's say you start using an app and it's one of your favorite apps, on your mobile phone, and you're using it for years, and it's like a solo developer, and they decide not to support it anymore. iOS X+1 comes along, and your app goes away, right? You don't have access to your app anymore. All your nice data's in there. What do? Well, you're stuffed. It fundamentally was not your data, right? Because it was kind of hidden behind the scenes in that app. You didn't really have any recourse, right? Can't really sue this person. They weren't making any money. But even with a big company, how do you get access to that, right? You lose your data, you lose your device, and you weren't backing up. The data's gone if they weren't storing into some kind of cloud service. So fundamentally, apps, it depends on the app developer. Are they somehow making the data available to you in some manner? With this, just the default operation of it, if the developer's making use of this system, this framework, the server, the data will be stored in your cloud. And it's kind of a bit up to the developer how that data gets exposed. The idea is the developer should expose the files in a format that are accessible by the end user. So for my shared images app, for example, they're JPEG images that get stored into your Google Cloud, into your Google Drive. So they're just by nature accessible to you in your Google Drive folder. I'm starting to do something on there. I'll try to talk about that a little bit. That their JSON formats are a little more obscure, but it's still text. So developer makes use of sync server, data stored in normal files in your Google Drive, or in Dropbox. It gets stored in that /apps folder under the name of your app. And also, and this again depends on how the developer sets this up, but I'll show you how it works in the shared images. This enables backup and recovery. So you can delete the app, reinstall it, and bang, you get going in 5 minutes. Because it's like you invited a new person onto the system. It just kind of downloads all the files and recovers. And this was also another one of my first kind of ideas for why I wanted to do this. It was like, man, I'm just doing this on the side. I don't want to pay a whole bunch of money to store data on servers. If my app was to go big, why do I want to pay a bunch of money for storing data? I will have to pay for server time and stuff like that, but why do I want to pay for storing their data? So content data is fundamentally stored in the user's own cloud storage. There's metadata and user credentials stored in indexes for the tables. I'm using MySQL. It gets stored. So far in my use of this, it's about the server data is about 2 orders of magnitude smaller than the data that gets stored in the cloud. Data gets stored in the user's cloud storage. So that's a pretty decent savings. That's going to depend on the kind of data you're using. These were just standard image files taken from a mobile phone. The fourth use case is kind of out there in terms of you won't be able to infer this from what I've said so far. Another one of my directions for this is, it kind of relates to part of why I was interested in this position, working with you guys and discussion about this, is it's offline use of the apps. So one of the things I'm doing with, and it's not specific to the server, but it's specific to the iOS client framework. It is supporting, and I'm not 100% there with it yet, it is supporting offline usage of data. For example, a really good example of this, apps that don't do this, like iMessage app, it's trying to send a text message. It failed. I believe it's still the case. You try to send a text message, you have no network, it just gives up. It doesn't retry later. You have to try yourself again later.
Sometimes it retries later.
Really?
And the receiving person gets 12.
So the client itself, now some work has to be done by the developer to support this also. I'll say that the client encourages offline operation. When a developer is making use of this, you queue files or data for upload. You can do that without network access. The whole iOS client framework is set up for it. These survive relaunches and app crashes. Here we go. Again available. That's a single word. Network again available. Uploads and downloads can occur again. So again, this requires developer to make their data available offline as well. You have to do it with the client. But the client encourages the offline operation. It supports it. You just have to do a little bit of work. You have to do some work alongside of it too. So use cases. Other questions? So, don't think this is terribly technical, it's just labeling the parts of the system a little bit differently. What I want to do is I want to step you through kind of a little bit of the flow of the system so that make sure maybe you get a little bit of sense of what's going on. So on the left, there's the app. You know, technically you link it into this client framework that I'm providing, this sync server client framework. It's like
It's like a plugin.
it's a CocoaPod.
To
It's
your app.
yeah, it's a plugin. It uses standard kind of network, HTTP communications, HTTPS communications to communicate to the server. The server has a database, and right now, again, there's there's two cloud storages, services I'm using, and Facebook for authentication, and that will be extended over time. So that's the basic the basic moving parts of the system, if you will. Again, this is simplified, at least in the sense where I'm not showing, there is communication from the client framework directly to Facebook, to Google Drive, to Dropbox, but that is purely for authentication. That is not in terms of transfer of files. And I'll show you this a little bit with the demo, and we're just about there. So this is the demo app. Again, it's not deployed to the App Store yet. I could. It would pass Apple's criteria. The back-end framework isn't quite there yet. It's a little too limited, and really what I'm trying to do is provide this as an example, working example of the back-end framework, the server-side framework. What this does, and you can kind of see it with the names there, this lets you share images right now with just one owning user and a bunch of sharers. So I happen to be the owning user, and then I got a couple buddies who are using this in Florida. Maybe friends of mine in Florida, so they can upload images, but then I own them. They go into my Google Drive. Okay, and then I think they both happen to be signed into this as Google users. They could have been Facebook users. I have one of my iPads set up to be a Facebook user sharing on this. So, I think I have a total of 12 users right now, technically. One of those happens to be, you can submit to test flight and get a beta review by Apple. That was one of them. So let me actually step you through a little bit. Because I was doing a bunch of testing, because I thought it might be an interesting piece of the demo. My app, actually, I have just installed the app, and I think I have to turn it off. Let me see if I can get it in here. Is it screen mirroring is on? Yep, right there, yep. Upstairs.
Let's watch Blade Runner.
Where?
Let's watch Blade Runner.
Oh, it's so long.
I haven't forgiven Blade Runner. I'll talk to you about that later.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't talk too much about it.
You've said too much already.
Exactly.
I have, but you don't know why I haven't forgiven Blade Runner.
I have an
But
idea.
the opinion's right there.
They messed up
I
somehow.
started watching it and never bothered to finish.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
a very particular, eccentric opinion, though, so it's, anyway. There we go. So here's the app. So, well, that's all very useful, isn't it? I've been having this thing. I'm gonna have to delete it, install it again.
9,000 unread emails.
Yeah.
That's the really good crash. It doesn't even let you. There's an interesting
What's
thing. there.
Catsy?
It's a game for cats.
Actually?
I think I downloaded that.
Wow,
app.
that's
Like
It's one of
fish
mine.
swimming or?
You want to see it? We can just the cat seat. So
Aw.
you touch the little guy. It makes a sound. But I've got anyway. My cat's like it.
It's a cat toy.
Whale.
I got 600 downloads in one day of that
Catsy?
game. I have no idea how that happened, and that was just the aberrant spike, and I get like no downloads of it.
You made it on some like blog
Yeah.
in China or something.
I don't know, there's something funky going on. Let me see if I reinstall here, if that's gonna do it. I might have to build it on this device. that's possible too.
So while that's running, I was thinking about this after the last time I saw you give the talk at iOS
Yeah.
meetup, and which was notably more, like you said, technical. But I was thinking about it as like, it seems like you're building a file system which just operates on a cloud, like old computer software just read from the disk. Is that an apt comparison or analogy?
I think it is. I think it is. I mean, it is a kind of a file system you can share with other users.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Gonna do the same thing? Nope. Good, we're there. So this is as if, I have a sign in on this, so I'm gonna sign in. So this is just kind of the initial first screen here. You see in the upper right, it's got this share button. I'm not signed in, so I can't share. That's where you'd actually initiate sharing with some other users. So I'm gonna sign in. So there's my 3 sign-ins. I could sign in as Google user, Facebook, Dropbox. Go in.
So this is you creating your account on this
No,
server, on this
so I have an account already.
server. Okay. But
So
the creating account would be similar.
would be similar.
Basically the same.
Yeah. You can only create an account as a Google or Dropbox user.
That's Facebook.
You can only accept a sharing invitation as a Facebook user. Because you don't have ownership of data as a Facebook user.
They don't have like an images section you can tie into the API? Oh, that's just not a thing you're doing it?
I don't want it to be just images.
Yes, that was something that I realized after the last demo, is that this is a exemplary application
Right.
demonstrating the framework underneath.
Files.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that makes sense with Facebook. then.
There are files, I don't have this automatically set up to fetch data. Probably I'll do that eventually. So what I have to do, one of my favorite features of this app is it's got not only a pull down from the top to refresh, but it's got a pull up from the bottom to refresh. Because one of my buddies,
What about my iPhone 10? Pull from the bottom, is just gonna close the app?
that's interesting. Well, I gotta ask Rod about that because he asked for this feature because I've got an option here. It lets you sort newest images at the top or the bottom. And he was sorting it at the bottom, right?
Oh.
And he had to scroll all the way to the top to pull down a refresh. And he's going, dude, this is too hard. So I put in for him this little feature, and it's fun. It's a little animation. What? Not working. Somehow that wasn't working. I'll have to show you in a sec. So now we got to wade through this, right? So now it's downloading all the images. So this in the detail, it went to the server, made sure I was authenticated, I had access to these files. Now it is downloading these files from my Google Drive. Plus, the subtitles there are actually the titles on the images. I have the facility in the server to store a bit of metadata that's application specific. And that's where those titles are coming from. So it's technically not just all the data you're seeing coming from my Google Drive. Some of it's coming from stored in the server, but that's probably best being really lightweight because you don't want to load up the server with a bunch of metadata. Kind of goes against the idea here.
So this is downloading the images to your phone.
The phone is caching all the images, full size. Yeah. So while it's doing that, I guess I can't show you. Well, we'll come to that. That'll take another 5 minutes. Let me switch back here. Stop me. I'll just let that finish. And I'll come back to that in a sec. And we'll come over here. So, if this is boring, we can skip through it, but I thought I'd try this out and see if this worked as a presentation idea. So, I want to step you through 3 things. Uploading an image, sharing, and downloading. Again, these are the kind of component parts here. So uploading an image, you do something to create an image on the app. You know, and again, this doesn't have to be an image, this could be whatever file. It could be just a text file, it could be, probably, given the nature of this system, you probably want it to be something that has meaning to an end user, the file type. You know, because if you just made some arbitrary binary file, having it stored in their Google Drive or their Dropbox probably wouldn't have much meaning. So the user makes some image, it gets uploaded first to the client framework, then it goes to the server, and then as part of that deal, and I didn't make an explicit arrow there, that's where some permission authentication comes in. It's checking to make sure you're authenticated to do this operation. Then it uploads to the Google Drive. So just emphasis here being, it is not, the content data is not being stored in the local server, in the server database.
So it'll take the file and then store a drive, and then it'll store the drive location and metadata
Yeah,
in
so
your server.
that's what I'm gonna do here. And what, the uploads actually occur in two phases. The first phase can happen completely kind of asynchronously. The data gets, sometimes you want to upload multiple files at once. So you upload, and I've got a naming scheme where they don't write over top of each other. There's like two UIDs, one for the device, one for the file. It's kind of concatenated, so it's like UUID.UUID. And there's a version number too. After uploading to Google Drive, then, so the file's in Google Drive, after you've uploaded that bunch of files, then there's a commit operation where you say, now I'm done. And that is done kind of atomically, so that synchronously, if you will, at the server level. So and that batch of files that you've uploaded gets transferred into the file index of the server. But again, that's just a record. That's just record keeping. This is metadata that we're talking about, naming of the files and where they exist in the cloud. And so that's the upload operation. The sharing, now this is all about communication. This is a kind of standard idea in server technology. The main intent of sharing at the initiation point is to create a token that you can give to someone else so they can use it to share. They can use it to redeem that. It's something like changing your password, right? You generate a token, and anybody who has that token can do the operation.
It's like an API key, sort of.
Kind of, sort of. So you know, first that you make calls, you get up to the server, it interrogates the database, and the sharing, I've got different levels of permission for users. There's read only, there's read write, and there's read write and admin. Admin just means, can I invite someone? So you have to have, at this point you have to have admin permission, or you have to be the owning user. And the server says, okay, yes or no, I will authenticate that or not by checking its credentials there. Presuming it's all going right, it sends back this invitation token to the client, and then it comes up that, and this is actually specific to my Shared Images app. You'll notice at the very bottom screen there's this hideous URL there, but in the guts of it is a token that lets anybody who has that token become, you know, start sharing your files. So really that token is credentials into your set of files, right? And a bunch of text there that probably should be trimmed down because no one's going to read it, right? Of course, you have to have the app installed on your device before you can actually click on that link. So that's the invitation process, or half of it. That's the creating the invitation, or accept the invitation. So this next piece is the sharing user downloads. I think we're probably starting to put people to sleep with this, but get the idea here. So what I mean here is a sharing user is downloading. Okay, so the picture isn't too much different than owning user. We go out to the server, we make sure that person is authenticated to at least read the files, and then we make the operation to Google Drive and we transfer the data back. One interesting thing that I'll put in a little technical thing here, which if you're not interested in the technical piece, you can fall asleep on this one. This is 100% written in Swift right now, And the framework I'm using does not allow streaming yet, so there's actually some cumbersomeness here. Normally, with like something like Node, you can stream the data almost directly from the client through to Google Drive, but you kind of have to. Right now, there's a memory bottleneck on the server because you have to have the entire file stored in memory on the server. So that could, if you're uploading big files,
So if you have huge, like if you're sharing movies or something with people.
that would be hideous. You can't do that. But the people who are doing the framework I'm using, it's IBM. They've got streaming on the radar here, so that's really a necessary practical kind of piece. I didn't put that in my next steps, but that is a technical, gnarly piece that needs to be solved before this could really be used in production at any scale. Even with like replicating servers and different like EC2 instances or something, that's really gnarly.
But you're still caching all this stuff locally. Like if you had a movie or like a video or something. You know,
Not with streaming or not. The streaming, it should just go, a buffer of it should just come from the client to the server to Google Drive. And I think that's exactly what you get when you use something like
Oh, you're
Node.
streaming uploads is what you're saying.
If you're streaming uploads
Yeah.
or downloads.
Streaming downloads, you should just watch the thing, you would cache it on the client.
Well, it depends on your app, right? Depends on what the purpose of your app is, but yeah. Let's go back to my device here. Download a bit. I'm sure it has finished, yes.
What is that, Braven? Bracken?
What?
Braven.
Is that what's his face? The Shia LaBeouf.
I think it must be what's his face.
Yeah,
It
what-
is.
What are you talking
You
about?
guys know what I'm talking
One
about?
of the
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
Someone
Movie
threw a name out there.
poster.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
maybe we should have watched the movie. Why am I not connecting?
That'll be my brown bag lunch day. That's all I'll have to contribute.
Brown Bag Wood. And what are the 5 movies available today?
Yes, exactly.
Here we go.
So all images downloaded. Oh, that's interesting. Rod uploaded something. Hopefully it's not really perverted. What did he put? Roses are red, violets are blue. There we go. Nice. They're both developers, so what are you gonna do? Or this one.
So
Rod,
nerdy.
you can tell that Rod shares my sense of humor. I don't think of you as a coworker because you never do any work. What do I want to show you here? So let's upload an image. Well, first I'll show you the bottom. I don't know why it wasn't working before. It was some kind of case. So this is the pull up from the bottom.
Wow, look at that.
That was very unexpected.
It's using something called, what is it called? It's from Uber, I think. There's a set of interesting animations that Uber has, and I can't remember the name of it. These are their character animations. Because there was 4 of us that were doing work on it, I didn't put my initial on. I got my wife's initial N, Danny's initial D, Rod's initial R. I think those are the 3. So you pull up from the bottom, there's this kind of fun little thing. Can't remember the name of it. Lottie. I think it was Airbnb.
Oh.
Airbnb, not Uber, Airbnb. They have this animation package called Lottie. It's really cool. So if you just go up to the top and you can do this more standard pull down from the top.
I know, you showed us that one a little bit ago, and I was just expecting
Yeah, something
know,
similar.
a black version or something.
I had to do something fun on the bottom just for
What a
Rod,
cool,
my buddy. So we want to upload an image. We can take a picture. Here, we'll take a.
No, not in this direction.
He says, no, I didn't put up. Here, we'll take a picture of our director, Mr. Eric.
Director.
There we go.
I like the green in the back.
I know, I
Yeah.
like that too. Headshots.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, the green. So there we are. So that's now in my Google Drive. You're captured forever.
But it's private.
It's private. That's right. It won't be searchable. The thing I'm working on right now is discussion threads. The buddy said
Mm.
You know, you want to tap through here, and you want to tap on that, and you want to have a set of messages that are discussing this image. You can go, who is that dude? You know, whatever. So that's what I'm working on right now. I don't have this installed right now. I don't have it available. It's kind of buggy right now. But it turns out that the way I've been progressing with this is up until like a couple weeks ago, you couldn't modify files. So the files were immutable. And it greatly simplifies things when you do that because, you know, when you start being able to modify files, you get into conflict resolution. Something like on Git, really interesting to the tech people here. But you know, so the problem is that, so I'm making a change to one file, and the buddy in Florida is making a change to the file. We both upload, and it collides more or less, right? How do you resolve that? It's tricky as heck. What did you say yesterday? You said,
Crossing the streams.
no, JD or something? GD? GD.
Oh,
So it turns out that you can, with some simplifying assumptions and some simple specific domains, it's easier. Like for example, messages. If I don't allow modification of messages, the problem becomes much easier. Because then you're just having immutable messages that you have to deal with, and then you might have to merge those groups of messages together for one discussion thread, but it becomes much easier. You don't have to worry about like merging text like Git does.
So then there's no edit functionality?
Not for individual images, not for individual messages, which is not uncommon for messaging apps. Like,
Right.
I send you an iMessage, you can't go back.
Yeah.
Slack is different,
Right.
right? I'd like to know, I'd like to talk to the Slack people about how they do that. I'm gonna just wrap things up here. I'm talking enough.
what is your app called?
This is called shared images. It's not, you can't download it. It's not-
Right, I just
not
was curious about
Shared
it.
images. My wife thinks I should have a better name.
Yes, I do
And
too.
I've asked Gerard to make me in for a, you know, on the side paid project. I'm gonna try to get him to make me an icon for it.
Mhm.
At some point in the future, I'll make it available to the public. I don't know when.
So let me just make sure I understood. So when your friends upload to this thing, it's uploading to your Google Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
And is that just the way that you've designed the shared images example app?
No, that's part of the structure of the system right now. Again, one of the big pieces that I'm going to get to, hopefully by the end of this year, is a more general kind of ownership idea. That there will be no single owner for a group of images. So I'll be able to, with this, have what I want is something near the top of the app that says what group of images are you looking at right now? Are you looking at the group you're sharing with family? Are you looking at the group you're sharing with, call these Louisiana buddies, because I met them in Louisiana when I was in grad school. You know, another set of images that I share with my wife.
So albums.
Albums will probably be the right terminology for this app. And those albums, as part of that, the ownership will be distributed across individuals. You know?
But it's not just images. Albums makes me think of images. It's just any file.
Yeah, in the broad concept with this, you know,
But you're
it'll be.
focusing on images.
So the second app that I plan on incorporating this with is, I'll show it to you. Since I've got your, probably we can just, I don't think I have anything critical that we need to talk about, and the rest of this is just kind of wrapping up, so I'll just end here. So this thing is called What Did I Like? It's also one of my apps. It doesn't work on the App Store right now. I gotta update it. This is for storing, so that image that I uploaded the other day, Lucky China.
Why were you in Aurora?
Because of Lucky China.
Oh, it was a destination. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This place is awesome. They have these dumplings.
They didn't get the greatest reviews though online.
Toast.
Place in Gun Barrel that has amazing dumplings.
Really? You're gonna have to tell me about it.
Closer.
So $10 gets you like 20 dumplings or something, and they're so good. Oh my god.
Those look good.
But anyway, so what, right now, the data on this is I can't share it with anybody unless I like, upload the image like with, this kind of idea there, right? But what I want to do is I want to make the back end of it use sync servers so that I can have, a collection of people I share, people that like Asian restaurants. I can have an album for those people, right? Or a collection of people that family, I share certain kind of places and things with them, And so the data for this can be formatted as images and probably JSON for the descriptions.
So if you are gonna share with 11 people, does that get uploaded to 11 people's clouds?
No, so I haven't worked out the details, but each file will be stored in one place. So right now, it gets stored in one cloud, one Google Drive, one Dropbox.
So it's whoever started the thing.
Yeah,
Is
I don't know if eventually I want to do some kind of redundancy. I think just initially, as phase one of the grouping kind of group sharing kind of deal, I think it'll still just be single ownership, but whomever initiated that will be the owner. And whoever created that will be the owner. So I might make a modification, going back to the other app, someone, again, this is not here yet, but so we create, there's a discussion thread attached to that one, and the discussion thread interface actually looks very much like iMessage interface. It's like, you're sending text messages, but they're not stored in the same way. So I create that file, that discussion file belongs to me. That gets changed in my Google Drive, but if someone else was to kind of create the image, create the discussion thread, then that file belongs to them. So it's kind of a distributed ownership kind of idea.
Nice.
You wouldn't extend ownership?
Sorry?
You wouldn't extend ownership?
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that's kind of the down the road piece of this, is that you've signed on to that album, that group, you're sharing with that group as a Google Drive person, as a Dropbox person. You create an image, you upload that image, that's yours. That gets saved in your Google Drive, that gets saved in your Dropbox. It's not the way it's working right now.
Currently, it's uploaded to one person's.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
that's what
uploading to the owners.
Like having multiple owners, have it all just stored in all of your things that you upload, stored in your own stuff,
Yep.
and everyone else's stored in theirs.
But everybody who's sharing has permissions into it and can
Yeah.
download from it,
So you download it, it sort of pulls from all these different sources.
yeah. But it'll be all mediated by the server.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's a good idea.
The question that I had both today and from last time is that it wasn't clear to me, are you manipulating the sharing settings on Google's side too? Or are you just setting up OAuth so that your server is allowed to download from Google and forward to whatever device?
So the way it works is the server itself has full access to like some collection of files. So for Google, the server itself has access, when I sign up as an owner, the server has access to everything in the Google files. For Dropbox, I've set it up so that there's two levels that Dropbox has for file storage. It's either app specific or everything.
Right.
So I've made it app specific for Dropbox. So the server can access everything, but it filters things down
Right.
to just what is being allowed.
Yeah, I guess to my point, if I shared something with Max, and then Max went to his Google Drive, the website, not through
Yeah.
a shared images thing or whatever, he wouldn't see that thing in his Google Drive.
No, it's just yours. End of this year, then yes, the files that he uploaded
Right, the files he uploaded would be, yeah,
would be
right.
there. But right now, no, he doesn't see any indication of this in his Google Drive.
What if you were using two services at once? So, like, would an album ever be made up of Dropbox and Google Drive at the same time?
Well, again, down the road, yes.
So then, in that case, if you upload an image, if you take a picture on your phone, does it send it to both then? Just share it to both places, or do you set a default?
So,
What's the-
the way I'm conceptualizing it, I haven't nailed down all the details of this yet for this grouping idea. The owning person, it gets stored in their cloud storage. The tricky part, as far as I'm concerned, comes in when I say to a Facebook user, come share these files. Where do those files get stored? Then you need to have some way when you're becoming an owning user in this system of saying, purely sharing users such as Facebook, Twitter, whatever, I will allow them to store their files in my cloud.
That's a hard line to draw. I would say that we should just not let sharing on the users upload anything.
Right, you could do it that way too, right? I mean,
You have to
I
authenticate with
I-
Drive or Dropbox.
I have to nail down some of these options, but you could do it that way. You could say sharing users cannot upload, they can only download. It's a little limiting.
Yeah.
But if sharing users are going to upload, then there has to be some kind of policy in place. And that policy it definitely has to be the owning user saying, yes, I agree to some usage of my file storage for these sharing users.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. If I was sharing a thing with Max, like, I would totally never allow him to. Just only Max.
I would give you full rights, full access.
You know, to all your porno, right?
I don't know what that is.
So does that make you porno buddies? Like, if you get hit by a bus, he goes and deletes everything?
We help each other out that way. Oh, gosh. It's an HR conversation.
Like, Max, we can talk about your porn addiction. I didn't even bring it up.
Transparency.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.